And we are on. Welcome, 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 everyone. This is the third day of the 𝗏𝗂𝗁𝗃 Global Summit, and this is the second panel of the day. The topic today and the conversation we are going to have is about the future of team coaching. And it couldn't be a summit without some legends and tops on their field. We have Leda Turai, Giovanna D'Alessio, I have to say, Leda Turai, Giovanna D'Alessio, 𝗁𝗂𝗁𝗃 Leong, and Alicia Hullinger. And this is 𝗂'𝗂𝗁𝗃 𝗂𝗂𝗁𝗃 and 𝗂𝗂𝗁𝗁𝗃 from the Team Coaching Global Alliance. We are going to host the session and moderating the conversation. Feel free to say hi in the chat and tell us where are you joining us from. We're going to have 60 minutes together. Please keep your microphone on mute to avoid distractions. After the introductions, we will start our conversation. We already have prepared some questions that we believe you will appreciate. And if you have other comments, questions, please use the chat. If we don't have time to answer all the questions and address the comments before we close the session, please continue the conversation on LinkedIn. 𝗏𝗂𝗁 is going to put also there the link of the post that we can continue the conversation. Okay, so we are excited about today's guests, and there is a reason why that. 3 of our guests have actually been all members of the Global Board of Directors of the ICF back in the days when ICF had only one global board. And if I am correct, Leda and Giovanna, you were both chairs, presidents at the time, and why you were vice president, yes. And we have also people who have been awarded and have created history. For example, Giovanna was the first elected chair, president of the ICF Global Board from Europe. We also have the honor to have Alicia Hullinger with us, who leads the ICF Thought Leadership Institute, guiding its evolution into a futuristic hub for coaching. She is a cultural sociologist and strategic visionary. She explores how emerging forces reshape human development. And Alicia crafts transformative frameworks that position coaching as a catalyst for thriving futures, where people, organizations, and the planet flourish together. Now, I made an introduction about Leda, 𝗁, and Giovanna, but let's me share a few things about them. Leda is an internationally experienced expert in coaching, leadership, team development, and organizational learning. She holds the Master Certified Coach title from ICF and is pursuing a PhD in quantum sciences. Leda has held significant global leadership roles, founded 𝗂𝗁𝗃 Global, and contributed extensively to leadership development, coach education, and consciousness research. 𝗁𝗂𝗁𝗃 Leong served at the ICF Global Board as Vice Chair in 2017 and Global Board Member from 2015 to 2018. In 2019, he was inducted into the ICF Circle of Distinction. He is the author of the books Empowering Asian Mindsets Through Coaching, Powerful Performance Coaching Tips, and Shifted to Masterful Coaching. And he has coached and trained more than 10,000 senior managers and executives. And Giovanna D'Alessio is the founder and partner of 𝗪𝗓𝗄𝗃. She is also co-creator of, if I say that correctly, 𝗖𝗂𝗁𝗃 It's 𝗂𝗂𝗁𝗃. It's a hierarchy-free organizational design. She served 8 years in ICF Global as Director at Large, Vice President, Treasurer, and President. And she authored the books Personal Mastery, The Path to Transformative Leadership, Becoming Whole in a Divided World, and co-authored 5 Principles to Thrive in a Complex World. So, be prepared for a treat with our distinguished panelists here, and we hope that we are going to have with you one of these kind of conversations that we usually don't have the opportunity or space to have. So let's start the conversation. And the first question that we have from you is, noticing also what is happening in the world and also the nature of team coaching, its systemic nature of team coaching and everything that is happening. So let's start diving deep directly. What is the role of team coaching in systems change and in collective resilience? So Giovanna, would you like to go first?
Sure, okay. But first of all, systems don't change because someone issues a directive. They change because groups of people start behaving differently, making new choices and relating in new ways. And that's why teams are the most powerful leverage point for systemic change. And team coaching plays a pivotal role here because it helps team move beyond their immediate objectives to see themselves as part of a wider system. So when teams begins to understand their interdependencies, not just within the team, but across departments, stakeholders, even societal impact, they can start aligning with larger purposes and adapt more intelligently to change. And collective resilience in this sense is not about just bouncing back from adversity. It's about building capacity for uncertainty, disruption, transformation. So it involves developing muscles like trust, openness to feedback, rapid learning, ability to hold multiple perspectives at once. So yeah, the coach becomes a mirror and a guide, helping teams see where they are replicating the very patterns that they wish to change. And we help them surface stuck dynamics, challenge limiting beliefs, reconnect with their purpose. So this is just to start off the conversation.
Thank you very much, Giovanna. And Leda, why feel free to join us. Alicia, I know you have a double role. You represent, you can share with us either your insights from the Thought Leadership Institute research that you are very familiar and very aware of, or we can share your own personal opinion.
So I can add on. Can you all hear me?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. So yes, the role of a team coach is really important because with all the teams that I've worked with so far, they don't view themselves in a systemic manner. They come in, they discuss a certain issue, they make certain decisions, and so on. And when a team coach invites them to see how their behaviors, how their thought patterns, and how their communication is actually affected by elements in the system, not just within the team, then they begin to be aware and become conscious and make decisions to whether to change or not to. So, and this is very powerful because at the end of the day, we are creatures of habits, and we do things without thinking out of the box. And once you become aware of how the system actually affects the team, they can become doubly effective by consciously breaking from certain patterns and habits.
Thank you. Yes, Leda?
Yes, I would build on that. And I really love that, Giovanna, you define that it's not about bouncing back, but it's really about growing together and becoming much, much stronger. And I think that it's not easy to be part of a team and to really release that collective intelligence and wisdom what teams can have. But once teams realize that, that's very, very powerful. And they can have multiple influence. And I was, just yesterday or before yesterday, I got an email from Magda Muk, and probably that is why I remember our conversation, what we had many, many years ago. And she said that when we coach one person, the effects are multiple. And I think that when we coach one team and we do that really, really well, that can have multiple effects. And if they realize that they can have an impact on systemic change, they can make more conscious decisions, they can be stronger agents. And I was just reflecting also on the conversation we had, or the panel discussion you have earlier today. You know, when Gihan said that we have to be very conscious about the use of AI because we create a lot of loss, but we also damage the planet with that. If we do that as a team, right? Or as a group of people, we can have much, much bigger impact than if we do that alone.
Thank you, Leda. Alicia?
Yes, I will add, and I actually want to take a step back because I think the question actually jumps ahead and really gets into the futures thinking perspective, because how many people are using the term collective resilience, for example, right? Or collective consciousness. And I think that in of itself is a trend that we're seeing, that there is a rise for collective consciousness and really a need and growing demand for being present and thinking about systems in a very different way, in a sensory way, and thinking about altered states that we don't necessarily have in the present moment. And I think that there is this rise for this collective consciousness. So I think we have to take a step back and, you know, how many teams know what collective consciousness means, right? And what are the benefits of having a collective consciousness as a team? And that gets into, I know I'm jumping ahead to some of our other questions on, like, you know, what is success and performance and all of that. But I do just want to say that, you know, I think that the rise of collective consciousness is a trend that we're seeing, and that connects to other trends that we're seeing. As far as one of the things that I like to say is that collaboration is a meta skill of the future, right? And we have to shift from a surface level transactional way of collaborating to a deeper level of collaborating and working together and coming together for shared purpose, right? So that was one thing that I just came to mind, is that you're jumping ahead, which I love, but I just also want to take a step back for those who are like, what is collective resilience? What is collective consciousness? And let's start there. So.
Absolutely. And you brought also so many themes that we are going to touch, because you mentioned the trends that we're going to check about right now, about the trends, but also another thing about that, are our competencies moving forward still relevant, or they need also to be updated? Also, another thing is like not only understanding how the system, what happens with the system, but also what happens with us. It's not only about the clients, about ourselves and how relevant we are. Okay, moving on. Well, we are still at the same space, basically, but talking about the emerging trends and changes, we mentioned AI, we have also hybrid work, we have remote teams, we have social change, justice movements, we have the environment. How these trends will reshape team coaching over the next decade?
Shall I go?
Giovanna, yes.
All these trends that you mentioned, that they're really changing the nature. Of course, they're altering the way we work, but they're altering the nature of collaboration itself. Teams are becoming more fluid, more diverse, more distributed. And at the same time, they're increasingly tasked with solving problems that have no clear answers, what we call the complex or wicked problems. So in this context, the role of the team coach is kind of shifting. So it's no longer enough to help teams, let's say, improve performance or clarifying roles, which is very often the main objectives of team coaching. But coaches must help teams become adaptive systems. So capable of sensing the emerging realities, responding collaboratively, of course, and regenerating themselves. So this means nurturing not only the technical collaboration, but the relational depth, the systemic awareness.
Talking about the adjustiveness, I have here a concern and clarification, and we're talking that, oh, this is how it is going and we need to adjust, or we work with this condition and we help shape the future. So there is a difference there.
Well, I mean, if you are familiar with the 𝗂𝗵𝗺 framework for complexity, adjusting sounds a lot like an area that we know about, and we just need to, fine tune something. I believe that we are facing challenges and situations that are so complex that there's nothing about adjusting. It's more about continuously testing, experimenting, trying, and see where you fail and when you get it right. So this elasticity is what is needed, and the team coach must, in a way, role model that. So, for example, especially with a situation of polarities where there is something that is really true for one team, but also the opposite is true at the same time. I don't know, like innovation and tradition, or movement and so staying safe or staying clear. So I don't know if that answers your comment.
Thank you. And what about you, Leda, and how the emerging trends will reshape team coaching over the next decade? What's your sense?
I think that team coaching will mature. And again, listening to the first panel, I was thinking that, we talk about the use of AI in coaching, but maybe we should talk also about the subtleties of the team coaching. In individual coaching, we have ACC, PCC, and MCC levels because they're different, right? And it's not easy to also develop as coaches. And I think that's my perspective, and maybe it's wrong, but maybe we use team coaching at the moment not in such a masterful and subtle way as we could or should use. And I do see team coaching as a space where really deep thinking happens. And when I say thinking, that is not just cognitive and rational thinking, but where the coach supports the team to create that relational field where also the collective consciousness can emerge, and what Giovanna said, that they can fully put themselves into the uncertainty and sense, presence, and think together about what to do. Because I think when we have so much information and we have also AI, alone, we won't be able to do such a good quality thinking. And co-thinking, I don't think it's easy because we all have our opinions. We are not curious enough, maybe. And I think that will be the role of the team coach, to support the team to unleash these qualities where they can listen to each other together, to themselves, to really know, to work with the invisible sometimes, which might be really important, and create space for what is really human, for the intuition, for the human messiness, for all the things what maybe now are not so common in the teams because they might not have the skills to work with this.
Yeah, and we will get back to that. Why?
Yeah.
Anything that you would like to add?
So my thought is that team coaches will one day learn to become comfortable using AI as a tool, because as a team coach, I speak for myself, there are so many factors to observe when you're observing a team in action. Their dynamics, their behavioral cues, whether they are in alignment with their goals, emotional climate, and so on. And that's why I most of the time I have a co-coach. But with AI, and the power of AI really is in large data analysis. So I imagine a day where, for example, we have a Zoom call like this, and there are teams, and the camera, the AI can actually capture all the behavioral patterns, all the communication patterns, and problem decision-making process, the energy, the verbal cues, and process it in such a way that it throws out this member A. That's how the person communicates in a team. This person B, that's how it's communicated. So with this additional data, which is very hard to pick up as a coach, to see everything at once, you will have enough data to work with the team and get them to be aware of what is happening during team discussions and so on, so that they can make conscious efforts towards that. So that's how I imagine AI complementing the team coach.
Thank you, Wai. And Alicia, you have a lot of insights from the relevant research that ICF has done on this topic. So what does the research tell us?
Well, so there's so many directions that I can go, because I want to pick up on what Giovanna said with the polarities, because I think that's something worth emphasizing. And then why I love just your idea of complementary AI as a helper in, making complexity a little bit less complex, right? So, but, I think one of the things I get to, maybe I'll go around in order to get back to the Giovanna polarity thing, because again, that's I think that's something to emphasize. So if we look at the trends, I think one of the things that we have to keep in mind is the demographic shifts, right, in a global world, and how that just is going to, increase diversity and the need for cultural intelligence in a globalized world. By 2050, for example, the majority of the population is going to be on the older urban side of things. It's going to vary from region to region, but if we also think about the generational differences in the workplace, where we have 5 different generations working together in the same workplace, that's also a very new phenomenon, and just brings up here, I'll go back to where Giovanna was going, which is those polarities or those tensions. And if you think about, as it's that multi-level system awareness that I think is really key and requires finesse with team coaching. Because if you think about, as an individual, we have tension within ourselves, right? So there's tension, I'll share a personal tension within myself that just happened, which is I have a really hard time planning more than a week out. But my sister wanted to, plan our vacation in January for August. And of course, I'm like, oh, sure. But that was the tension. That is like, yes, I want to, that's really far out. But anyway, so that's within me. But then you bring in multiple actors into a team, right, with different types of their own internal tensions. But then, as Giovanna said, those polarities, where how you, as a coach, it's holding space for those tensions, right? And it's really in a constructive way. And as I'm an integrationist. And so to me, we want to integrate the multiple worldviews. And I see that, we have, and every worldview has a mature and an immature manifestation, if you will. And so it's really helping to grow into that mature worldview, whatever it is, whether it's the traditional or the innovation polarity. And so I think that is where the complexity comes in, is that you're bringing in all of these different actors in and trying to get something done, and sometimes they don't even agree on what the shared purpose is. So that how do you move beyond that? And so it really is about holding space and being comfortable with the uncomfortable and that tension, because it is going to just be a natural part of team interactions and relationships. So it very much is about those relationships, the multi-level system awareness as far as what's going on with the individuals on a personal, professional level, what's going on with the team, the organization, then you have leadership. So there's a lot of different actors that might come to the table with different motivations, values, if you will. So yes, that is, so I just wanted to emphasize Giovanna's point on the polarity, because I think that is where the fun begins.
And also where coaches sometimes find it more challenging to
just a second.
stay with the polarity. I mean, I had the opportunity to hear a lot of coaching sessions during the year, and one of maybe a couple of things I observed that very often coaches, they really want to help the client or the team's client, so they in a way push toward a resolution. They push toward making the team feel fine. And sometimes the team needs to go through, crisis, needs to go through conflict. Conflict, another very challenge for many coaches, because they avoid conflict instead of getting into the conflict productively. And the other piece that came to my mind hearing you, Alicia and Leda, there is a global movement toward the elimination of hierarchies. I mean, Bayer, 100,000 employee organization, has completely removed team leaders. And created, small teams that are completely self-organized. What do we need as team coaches to get out of the hierarchical mindset, where we know that there is a team leader and then there is some kind of structure, and then the decisions are taken in a certain way, and enter in a completely new world? And if you don't, with 𝗙𝗂𝗁 and the implementation of 𝗙𝗂𝗁 in many organizations, we observe how different the system is. So, and coaches need to get adjusted and learned how a self-organizing team work.
Thank you. Thank you. It brought to my mind also yesterday conversation we had about the insights from Lucy, all and myself, and there were topics that you mentioned also. For example, the avoidance in the mindset, the avoidance of the coach when they confuse conflict with confrontation, and they want to avoid the confrontation, but they need to address the conflict. And also how we stay updated to what's happening in the world, what's new, the trends, but also the situation of the world around us. You already start mentioning about that. We talk about the emerging trends, we talk about the complexity, we also have uncertainty, we have rapidly changed environments. So the question here is, what emerging competencies do you predict that will become critical for team coaches moving forward?
I don't know if I will immediately respond to this question, because I will pick up what Alicia said and what Giovanna said, but maybe this is speaking in the direction of your question. That Alicia spoke about maturity, and Giovanna, you also spoke about the polarities. And if, I will oversimplify a little bit the theories of vertical development, but what we know that it's a journey to change the mindset. And also what I noticed from my experience that there is now a kind of a bigger development moving from the socialized mind more into the self-authoring, but it's very difficult to move into the self-transforming, which requires holding the polarities, which requires holding multiple identities, because we don't have one identity, especially if team members belong to different teams, they will have different identities. We speak a lot about authenticity, but do we really know what is that? Because it's almost, it's almost understood like I should not change because this is me. But we are constantly growing, changing, fluid. And in that sense, you know, we need to, maybe that's one of the competencies, really asking the questions, what do we mean by identity, by authenticity, by being me? What do we mean by real growth? And I think that teams are a really good space for growing because we can be challenged. We can change together we can challenge together our assumptions, the collective ones and the individual ones. And maybe we can experiment together with new assumptions, with new manifestations of the values, because even the way how we understand values is conditioned. So maybe there are new definitions for them.
I think you are giving answers to this question, and I cannot help but smiling when you mention authenticity. It's kind of a joke, but it isn't. It's a paradox for a coach to say your authentic self, because we are in the profession of evolving. So if you say be your authentic self, it's like who is your authentic self? One, and does that mean that it is just one at that same time? No, we are in the profession of evolving. And talking about multiple identities, I cannot help also bringing that to the conversation. I was serving at the 𝗙𝗶 Advisory Committee of Coaching Education, and at the MRGs, one of the conversations was about the multiple identities that we have. For example, I am disabled and I have other identities. So we can be at the intersection of many identities. So thank you. So what would you have to add, Giovanna, why, and Alicia, about the competencies? And this time, Alicia, you bring your own personal opinion.
Well, okay. So Leda, I love where you were going with the multi-dimensionality, multiple identities, because I was like, ooh, that might be something to dig into, and thinking about what, competency looks like in order for us to be able to embrace our multiple identities, right? And to be able to be in relationship and befriend each of our identities, some that we might like better than others, and our ego identity. Oh gosh, it kind of can go down a hole there. But I think one thing that comes to mind for me, especially if we really dig into the idea of collective consciousness and collective intelligence, and thinking about the multiple types of intelligence that we need to go beyond, right? I think emotional intelligence has been the buzzword recently, but I think we have to even go beyond that and think about energetic intelligence, right? Or again, the collective intelligence. And I'll give a great example, because I think nature is a great way to learn for ourselves. But elephants, for example, have this amazing way that they communicate with their tribe, and it can be miles away, 3 miles away, and they use their trunk to essentially tap the ground to vibrate sound through the ground to their tribe, that they can let them know and communicate what is going on, and whether it's I need help or we're here, it's their form of communication. And so I think looking at examples, and I use that as to really open up our thinking and the possibilities of what these different types of interactions look like, and thinking about energetic awareness, right? So thinking about, well, Einstein said that the future of medicine is frequency. So if we start thinking about these other ways of sensing beyond our traditional idea of sensing, that really opens up possibilities. So I don't know, I kind of went on a tangent and got really fun there, but but I think energetic awareness, there's somatic coaching that is already happening. So applying somatic coaching, for example, to teams, I think, I'd be curious. I'm sure there's people who are doing that, but that would be something to just expand and build upon. Oh, and then I will also say, just as a bias, futures literacy, I think, could also be
Yes.
added to the list.
100%.
Well,
Yes. Go.
I already mentioned the polarity, let's say wisdom, but also system sensing, so the capacity to perceive the subtle dynamics, emotional undercurrents. That has a lot to do with what Alicia says about somatic and energetic sensing, you know, power flows, unspoken norms. That has to do with presence and the ability to work beyond surface level behaviors. And probably I would also add, and many coaches are very good at that, inner anchoring. Coaches who can stay grounded, compassionate, and open in the midst of team volatility and challenges becomes kind of a stabilizing forces for the team. So not just personal development, it's a professional need.
Thank you.
Yeah, also adding on to all this, I guess one of the things that is really emerging that's happening now is that teams are getting remote and meetings are getting more digital and so on. And I hear a lot of discomfort in terms of working digitally and remotely, and many team coaches prefer face-to-face, in-person kind of interaction. So the competency here that needs to be built is really to be comfortable with working with this emerging trend of remote and digital.
Thank you, right. It brought to my mind yesterday. Sorry, Leda, just this thought before I forget it, sorry. Yesterday we were talking about tools, and one of the tools was the square wheels, if you are familiar. It's like the square wheels instead of a round wheel, and people were trying to push the vehicle that had the square wheels. And one thing that we usually ask, we have always done things like that, right? Always things have been like that. That's a square wheel. Or if someone brings a round wheel, oh, we don't have time for that. And my ideas was listening to you all is like, for team coaches and for any coach, is like, don't be a square wheel. I have always done that. Oh yeah, I have already done that. That's how it works. No, look into what's going on now, what's going also in the future, moving forward, and just don't be a square wheel, be a round wheel. Sorry, Leda, to interrupt you.
I interrupted you, apologies. But I think why you brought to my mind that what is one competency we probably need to have is understanding what teams are, because we cannot speak about a team. They're very, very different types of teams that have different natures. And also sometimes what I had in my practice, that the team leader calls me and they ask me to coach the team. But when I really listen to what's happening, I understand that they are a team by a name, but they actually don't have interdependencies. They need to collaborate with others in the organization. And I think that's something we have to be really aware of what kind of teams they are, what are their nature, because different teams need different things. And also when people are parts of different teams, so we have these multi-team systems, those teams also require different things from them. So I think we need to be very aware of the context and how to coach them for their contextual best within the system or systems.
Thank you. Oh my God, that's such a rich conversation. I love it. I know that also the chat has a lot of action there. We have so many questions to address, and I don't know how to choose and which one is more important. I think we touched also about some outdated assumptions and new paradigms. So what do you think is the role that team coaching will play in challenging outdated assumptions and embracing new paradigms?
I can start first. I would say that teams, in order to be effective, needs to understand what makes an effective team. Many times, if a team has not worked with a team coach, they will think that as long as they're getting results from their team meetings and so on, that they are effective. So the paradigm that team coaches needs to actually surface is that what is the current paradigm of an effective team right now? You know, and what kind of effective team do you want to be? And I find that team coaches who have some knowledge and basis of what makes an effective team through maybe some surveys and so on, will be able to help teams who don't know what they don't know to consider new paradigms. So old paradigm is like the boss, the leader makes the final decision. The expert will have the best answer. You know, juniors or less senior team members tends to end up listening more because they tend to think that the other team members are more experienced. So as a team coach, we need to highlight these kind of old paradigms on how they are operating and also expose them to possible paradigms.
I will build on that, why, and this, I think, connects to one of the questions that we haven't surfaced, but I am connecting it to the question about beyond performance measures, right? Beyond success measures and thinking about the possibilities of what we can measure as far as what is it that we want to measure. And yes, performance, success, effectiveness, those I think have been some of the traditional measures to date, and those are important. And I think we need to go beyond that and think about the possibilities of, you know, thinking about the well-being of the vitality of the team, right? And thinking about how the team is being and doing in this world from a well-being perspective. And it's funny, I'm using that term, and that term I think can also potentially has opportunity to change, because in my bio, I had two terms that I was thinking through yesterday, and I'm like, I can't be using those terms anymore because they're coming from westernized science and you know, models that don't necessarily have a global resonance. So for example, thriving and flourishing, and those are from positive psychology, Western science. That's fine, they work, but even well-being might not be a global a term that resonates globally. And so I think the terms that I'm playing with, and I would love for people to chime in, is harmony or coherence. And so what about measuring team harmony or team coherence or team collective resilience, right? So those are some things that I think are on the table for consideration.
I think that the most important impact of coaching is learning, development. And we need to address the assumptions. If I use a technical term, it's the triple loop learning, when we go deep. And that's where also cultural change happens, when we notice those. And I fully agree with you, Alicia, that it's so important to just listen to the terminology and what impact that has. And in teams, it's easy to have the group think. So it's very easy to somehow change the individual's mindset if the team, the group holds a mindset. And I think that you mentioned already a few, why and Alicia, but there are plenty in the organizations, like we are a family. But do they think about what are the dynamics when they call themselves a family? Or another one, now it's very fashionable to talk about psychological safety. I think it's crucial. but it's not enough for the teams to be creative, because there are also other conditions which might be in place. So, you know, what do they really need? What do they really mean by something? And here we can go back to the very simple ICF competencies, competency 6. It's about exploring and inquiring the language, the use of language of the team, because they hold many, many assumptions. We use language also embeds a lot of assumptions, and it can be very useful, but it can be also a very powerful tool for creating negative impact potentially, and to spread some assumptions that are not helpful.
Now, without team coaching, help make the invisible visible, so we can highlight unconscious habits, such, for example, the over-reliance on hierarchy, or the fear of dissent, underuse of collective wisdom. So the coach can invite teams to consider alternative ways of functioning and alternative ways of reasoning. One of the most pervasive assumptions that still is very strong today is that effective teamwork requires strong and directive leadership at the top. But in today's interconnected and fast-changing environment, this model is completely outdated. Leadership must be shared, there must be responsive, must be distributed. And similarly, very often teams are taught to avoid conflict rather than learning to use tension as a source of insight and innovation. So a lot of assumption that the team coach can help transform.
And as I'm listening to all of you, these are more competencies that the team coach should have. So we are adding to all that. I cannot help, but since we brought the topic of the language, of the culture, and this is related, because 𝗙𝗶 is not just about like the obvious diversity, is about also inclusive language. It is about the assumptions, about everything. Right now in the world, in some countries, 𝗙𝗶 is being challenged or even attacked. How should team coaches address equity, access, and inclusion in teams moving forward? Giovanna, would you like to share your thoughts on that? If you unmute yourself first.
Yes, it could be helpful. Well, inclusion is not a trend, is a systemic necessity. Even in contexts where the EIB is being politicized or challenged, there is a fundamental human need to be seen, to be heard, to be valued. This need remains unchanged. So teams that ignore this reality may achieve short-term results, but will sacrifice long-term trust, innovation, even legitimacy. So as coaches, I believe that we do not impose ideology, but we do want to invite awareness. We want to help teams explore questions like, whose voice is consistently heard? Or whose discomfort are we protecting? Who gets to define what is professional, what is normal? So inclusion is not only about diversity of persons, of background, of skin color, sex, tastes, but it's diversity also of thoughts, feeling, diversity of expression. So we need to create spaces where people feel psychologically safe to show up fully, even when they don't fit the dominant norms. And we must help teams learn to stay present in discomfort, not to fix it and not to avoid it, but to listen and grow from it. True inclusion for me is not about consensus, it's about wholeness. And teams that learn to integrate difference without fragmenting will be the ones that will thrive, sorry, Alicia, thrive in increasingly complex and divided world.
No, that's absolutely true. We have less than 10 minutes left, and there are two questions that I really need to ask you, although there are many questions that still remain unanswered, so we will definitely continue the conversation on LinkedIn. The first question is that, and this is your personal opinion, and feel free to be as like challenging, daring, or whatever you want. It's like, what does the world mostly need from team coaches?
Well, I can start first.
Go ahead, 𝗁𝗧𝗫.
Right. So thank you. The way I see team coaches is that they are like a mirror. All right. Most teams tend to operate without self-reflecting, without seeing themselves. And our role is really to reflect and to create awareness in how they are operating so that they can make decisions to shift or not to shift based on those awareness. So yeah, so we are like a mirror, and every day all of us look in a mirror, and that's the role of a team coach.
Thank you very much, 𝗁𝗧𝗫. Well, I think a few things. First, I think we need to educate teams about what team coaching is and what are the conditions for really good team coaching to happen, and what can they expect. Because I think a lot of teams do not know what can they expect from team coaching. And I do remember the beginning of my coaching career, like 15 years ago, even more, 18 years ago, how much we had to educate our future clients about what really good coaching is. Secondly, I think that we as team coaches, we need to constantly self-transform and learn and be exposed for confusions, for discomfort, to learn a little bit more about ourselves, our blind spots, about our possibilities. And I think it's really crucial to be able to come and hold that space, to be so present. And in team setting, it's much more difficult to be so present because we are also triggered by the invisibles. But how to come there with this full trust and hold the space that, the confusion will be good, that the human messiness will lead to better understanding. How can we create those altered states? How can we support the team to create the altered states, which is the collective intuition, the creativity, the deep presence, which will lead them to much, much deeper thinking?
Mm.
For me, what the world needs from team coaches is courage. Because we need to do our inner work so we can support teams in theirs. And the world needs team coaches who are not just skilled in frameworks, but who can sit with uncertainty themselves, hold multiple truths, and nurture the capacity for wise collective action. So it really can be a powerful force, but not just for team success, really for societal transformation.
Thanks, Giovanna.
Thumbs up to all of that. And I guess, I think just to sum it all up and go back to some of the language that we started this session off with is, team coaches are really the stewards of collective wisdom, right? And what are those, yes, it's going to require that courage to hold those spaces, to be able to hold the tension in a way that dives into the conflict in a productive way and not avoids it. And so I think, yes, you all said it. And so thumbs up to each of the, I agree.
Thank you very much. I'm thinking about the supplementary competency in team coaching that says also, that refers also to modeling as modeling for the clients. And I cannot help but thinking that we are actually leading by example. We are not just coaching a team, we are modeling for them. And modeling courage is very important, especially nowadays, and they see our ability if from working with polarities, from feeling comfortable with the uncomfortable, for addressing conflict, to speak up for the things that really matter, and give voice to what is unvoiced, and go back to the basics, to values, etc. One last question to you, but before we go there and we close with your last question, I would like to share with our fellow coaches here about your books and your programs. So here we have Giovanna's book. You have also the link on the chat, Becoming Whole in a Divided World. If you see also Giovanna's website, you will find also 𝗙𝗂𝗁 and her other work. We have Wise also books, many books here, and the links we can contact him and learn also about his books, but also his programs. And Leda's, I have to get rid of Leda. I keep calling her because in Greek is Leda. So Leda's also contribution to the book Becoming an ICF Credential Coach, but also you connect with Leda and learn about her programs also. Big thank you from all of us to all of you from the bottom of our hearts. But before we go, last question. In one sentence, what would you say is the future of team coaching? In one sentence, what would you say is the future of team coaching?
I think it's thriving. The word you don't like, Alicia.
Good business.
It's a great word. It's a great word.
Flourishing.
Well,
Okay, Leda, thriving, Giovanna?
in one sentence, one word or one sentence? Because I'm thinking.
In one sentence. In one sentence.
For me, the future of team coaching is a transformational practice that awakens the collective intelligence, courage, and wisdom of teams.
Thank you. Why?
I would say that team coaching is still at its infancy stage, and there's so much more potential that we can tap on.
Thank you. And Alicia?
Yeah, so Giovanna already used what I was going to put in there, but I'll just add. So team coaching, I see it shifting from performance enhancement to collective evolution.
Yeah, brilliant. We couldn't thank you more for that. And to those of you who also were with us, we saw that there are many questions. What's remain unanswered for you? Please, let's continue the conversation on LinkedIn, and maybe we will have more opportunities to get the insight from our fabulous panelists. And we are super happy because we usually don't have the chance to hear from you and learn from you, from your wisdom and from your experience. So much appreciation to you all. And thank you all for being with us. And that's a wrap for the third day of the Team Coaching Global Summit. See you all tomorrow with 2 more sessions, more tools for several of the things that we have also discussed these days. Have a wonderful rest of the day, everyone. Bye.